Hey everyone, welcome back to another one of our Backyard to Backcountry Stealth Cam series. I'm Paul Kemper, and today we're going to take a look at some of my favorite images from before last hunting season. So last summer my niece was born, and this was before I started working for Randy and the crew, but I decided that while I was driving back to Pennsylvania, I had picked out a spot on the map that I'd done some e-scouting on. I turkey hunted there before and thought it'd be some really cool habitat to check out, and decided to hang my cameras there so that on my way back I could pick them up and see what I got. Just a heads up, these videos were taken before I started working with the Fresh Tracks crew, so they still are on stealth cams, but not the same cameras that the rest of the fellows were using. So my footage will look a little different, but I'm still super stoked about what I found. So this area is notorious for not having a ton of water all over the landscape. It's pretty pockety, and so I found a pretty tight coulee where there was a reservoir for cattle, and I figured that in that tight funnel would be a great place. I knew I was going to get some cows on camera, but for game animals, crisscrossing, coming in for water, and using the sides of that coulee for protection, coverage, and just kind of as a focus of travel. So to start off, I got some really cool videos of coyotes. One of the first videos I got was this coyote that looks to have a deer leg in its mouth. And at first you're like, what's that? But it looks like it's got a hoof and just shoots right up that path where I had seen elk, whitetails, mule deer, turkeys, and this coyote all use this same path. Here's another coyote just kind of standing there in the sun, enjoying the day, scanning around. I'm not sure if it's the same coyote. I know I've seen a lot of them in this area, but with all of the game traffic that I got on camera, I'm not surprised that there were a lot of coyotes as well following their tracks. Here's a little nighttime coyote action. I can't tell if that's rain or some dust flying through there, but the camera did absolutely awesome day and night. One of the things that I was hoping for, and it worked out in this coulee, was the high walls of the coulee protected it from direct sunlight, so I was able to sit that camera down at the bottom of the coulee without sun going directly into the camera lens. So while I was turkey hunting, I had seen some elk in this area, and I was super surprised. I shouldn't have been. I knew that there were elk down there, but I just wasn't expecting to see them that time of year. When I set this camera up, I was hoping to find some elk, and I was super excited my first elk video to be this spike licking my camera. So it was pretty adorable. I still definitely would have filled my tag on that spike, but yeah, it was really cool to see that he wasn't spooked by it and was just super curious and enjoying the sun. So this is still that spike. Left some saliva smudge on my camera, and then this is one that got me really excited. It was kind of like a ghost bowl where I had set up the camera. In front of it was some crisscrossing game trails. There were animals coming down the coulee to water, and on the right side there was a trail that was cutting up the hill in front of the camera. And so this bull came down on the right side of the camera and then kind of snuck around to the water. So I've got a picture of his butt and a brief segment of his antlers, but you can see in his shadow his tines are starting to develop. He's in velvet, and it was really, really cool to get that on camera. Next, we'll jump into the mule deer that I got on camera. Lots of does, lots of fawns. It looks like there was really, really good recruitment, which is great for mule deer in that area. But I was super excited to get some really great bucks on camera as well. You can see she followed that path on the edge of the coulee, got up to the water, came for a drink, and that's exactly what I was hoping for with this camera placement. When I got this fellow on camera, I was super stoked. It's a general deer unit. I've never killed a really big deer, and then he gets interrupted by his little buddy there. So it was just awesome to see that mule deer are doing well, even though we got that coyote on camera with what looked like a fawn leg in its mouth. The deer are doing just fine. Here's another good look at that buck. He stood broadside in front of the camera on that trail just before the reservoir starts, and he's perfect broadside profile. He turns his head, gives you a really good look. He's got great back forks. Something spooked that buck. He spent enough time sniffing that thing that maybe he realized it was a person put it there. Young buck, but yeah, lots of grass, lots of water, lots of cover. Hard to get to this spot. I think he's going to do okay. Another young buck, cool 3-point. It seems like they're not afraid of this camera. They're just hanging out, drinking water, eating grass, and putting on a little bit of a show. I think this deer was a different deer than that initial one. A little bit smaller back forks, but still a super handsome buck. Great big body on him. Enjoying all the grass and water deep in that coulee. These next clips were my biggest surprise. I knew there were whitetails in the river bottoms in this area, but I'd never seen one in this more broken country. So getting this buck on camera was a huge surprise to me. It makes me want to bow hunt this in November when they're rutting, especially if they're coming up out of the rivers. But yeah, this was a huge surprise that I really enjoyed getting this on camera. You can see it's a beautiful 4-point, or if you're from the East Coast, 8-point buck. And yeah, just a super handsome deer, looks super healthy, and he's got everything he needs. Why wouldn't he be there? You can see here after he gets some water and some food, how he just takes that game trail all the way up the hill. Last, and one of my personal favorites, is the turkey footage that I got. I've seen turkeys in this area, I've hunted turkeys in this area, but to know that they had really good recruitment after that spring where I'd hunted them, lots of poults, even with all the coyotes running around, just made me stoked to come back this spring. Here's a hen scratching her head. There's 4 poults, 3. I think a 4th one comes in. Just pecking around, grasshoppers, grass. One of my favorite things about these cameras was the flexibility I had to customize my own settings. The factory settings, wherever you put it, are awesome, but to change the gaps between images or how long your video clips are going to be was super great for managing card space as well as not taking up space on your computer. Here's another, looks like 2 hens, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 poults. Oh, 9. Yeah, it was just awesome to see turkeys doing well. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up turkey hunting. That was the first thing I ever hunted. And yeah, to see the birds doing well in one of my favorite spots to turkey hunt really, I want to say warmed my heart, but if they turn into Jakes or Toms, they better look out. So all this footage was from over the summer between July and August. It was really cool to check out an area that I don't normally spend time in that time of year and see what's going on. I've got some cameras out now and I'm excited to see what we get on that, but now I'm going to pass it off to Michael and see what he was able to capture.
Okay, well, way to go, Paul. His videos are going to be a lot better than mine, but I do have some videos to show you guys. So a little bit of background about my experience with trail cameras is I'm from Ohio, and I've lived in Iowa for a little bit, and all we did was hunt whitetails. And when I used trail cameras in that past life, I was a lot of times hunting private land, and I was using it to pattern deer. And there's a lot of things you can do in Ohio and in the Midwest and in Iowa that you can't do out here, such as bait your trail camera sites. So I would go out and I would dump a big bag of corn and inventory all the bucks that I had to put them on my hit list. So when I moved to Montana, I kind of quit running them. I knew I was going to be hunting primarily public land, and I didn't really think it was going to be a good tool. And I still think this. I don't necessarily think it's a great tool to pattern a specific animal, especially on public land, because they're getting pressured by hunters, recreators, etc. I still think it's a really good tool to throw out in the woods in your hunting areas to inventory the elk or deer or turkeys or whatever you may be hunting, just to know truly what's in the area. So the first camera that I set is in the thick of my favorite hunting area here in southwest Montana. It was opening day of archery season, and I've been in this area a ton. I've never killed a bull in this area, but I've seen a lot of elk, and it seems like every time I'm in there, I'm able to hear bugles or see cows, see elk, and I really wanted to just get a good understanding of what animals are in here, and also what kind of hunting pressure is in here, because like I said, it's a general unit in Montana. It's heavily pressured. There's roads all around the unit, and this area I found was just kind of a spot that I didn't think a whole lot of people ventured into. I set it up where several trails were converging, and there was a bunch of elk sign in there, scat, tracks. You could smell elk in there. And the day that I did set it up, like I said, it was opening day, and I was actually hunting a bull elk, which led to maybe some of the learning lessons that I'll get into later in the video. Let's get into the footage. This first clip is just a cow coming by. It's the second day of season, 4:40 in the afternoon, kind of coming by. And what I really liked about this one is the audio in it. You can hear her mew. She's kind of just feeding by herself. And something that, you know, depending on how much you hunt, you may or may not hear cows mew that often. And it's something that I'm going to take, and when I'm practicing come, you know, hunting season, practicing my calling, it's something I'm going to replicate. That's just a cow coming through, mewing, kind of showing off the audio features of this camera and how, you know, back in the day, a couple years ago, none of these cameras had audio in them, and it's just a really cool feature, and it's cool to hear them in their natural environment and making those true mew sounds. So not too long after that, we have another cow come by, and she's sniffing this camera, and I kind of noticed just as time went by that maybe my scent started to dissipate more, and the elk didn't really pay any attention to the camera at all. But on this first 24 hours of setting it, you can tell that these elk are kind of like, what's this? You know, they're able to pick up on that something's different. And I don't necessarily think it was a visual thing. I definitely think it was a scent thing by her, you know, coming up and sniffing this camera. And not to mention, it's just cool to see an elk like at 2 inches from your camera. Like you can see her eye right here. It's pretty funny, but just kind of interesting to see how like truly in tune these animals are. When something is different, they definitely know. So that was pretty cool. So here is an example of how they're kind of just, again, these cows, they're coming in. It's a cow and a calf, and I'd been picking these guys up pretty regularly. The real interesting thing about this is they're kind of relaxed at this point, and throughout these clips, they're kind of just feeding and milling around. But the last clip in this series, you can see one of the cows urinating, and that kind of leads me into this next clip, which is 10 minutes later. And mind you, you can tell from some of the particles in the air that are flowing to the right of the screen. So that scent is going to the right of the screen. And then this next clip, that cow and calf, that same one, they come through, and there's a bull behind him, and he's kind of doing a half-cocked bugle here. And I don't know if this is necessarily exactly what happened, but like they came through earlier, 20 minutes before, with no bull. I didn't see any bull. And then that cow urinates. They come back through 10 minutes later, and they have a bull behind it. So kind of what I'm thinking here is like, how amazing is that it's the 6th of September, rut, like some of these cows may be in estrus, and it just like that, 10 minutes later they come by, and this bull he's fired up. He's got these cows herded up, and he's pushing them, he's bugling, and you can like, if you slow it down here and you look real close, you can see his eyes rolled back. He's like real jacked up. So that was pretty cool. And I wish that I would have set my camera just a little bit higher, because it cut off the top of his rack, but I think it was a 6x6, and a pretty nice bull for the area, and something that I would definitely shoot. So following that, the next day, not even 24 hours, there's a 30-degree temperature swing. I know that we're always worried about, like, a lot of times you're dealing with super warm temperatures in the rut, and you're like, oh, they're just, you know, they're not moving around because it's so hot out. But here, you know, it snowed this whole day, and I didn't get a single clip of a bull elk. I just got these cows coming through, and I know that bull was with those cows the night before. So, you know, maybe this is just something that's a coincidence, but I mean, it's a 32-degree temperature swing, and no bull elk activity on the camera. That was unfortunately all the clips that I had in my prime location that I was the most excited about. I did set another camera in my backyard, and this was during the deer, this is during November, so the deer are rutting. I don't think I selected a very good location, but at the time I did, because it was a fence coming through, and there's a little pinch point, and I saw some tracks going through there. Here you can see a buck coming through at night, kind of showing you, the quality of footage at night. And the real cool thing about this one is you can hear him grunt. And that's something that I've only heard a couple times. I spent a lot of time before working for Randy and doing this Western hunting gig out in the deer woods, and like there were very, very few times where I could hear a deer grunt. So that was just a really cool clip, something you don't get to hear a lot. And now, like, I know, like, when I hear that in the woods that, oh, that is a deer grunt. The biggest learning lesson that I had here was the first couple days it really wasn't windy, and I got a bunch of elk clips coming through. But then once the wind started picking up, my camera would trigger, and it would literally record. It recorded like 2 days straight. And so when I got my camera a month after, I looked at it and I knew what the problem was right away. When I looked and saw that, you know, I have full battery and my whole SD card is full. I was like, oh no. You know, unfortunately, I probably would have gotten a lot of cool clips if I would have just not been in a rush when I set it up initially and really thought through. So that being said, I'll end on the things that I really liked about it. So the audio and the video quality is great. I mean, nothing to complain there. The battery life is really nice. And my favorite feature above all else is the fact that they come Python lock compatible. So we're setting these on public land most of the time, and I don't know how much of an issue it is out in the West, but I know in the Midwest where there's high populations of people, like there are some conflicts with people taking cameras or taking SD cards or what have you. Whenever I set a trail camera on public now, I always run a Python lock through it. And I'm not sure if all stealth cams are made this way, but this one is. You're able to thread it through the door. And so it gives you that peace of mind, because like I've never had an issue with somebody stealing my camera, but I have had people come by and I can tell that they've opened it up, looked at my SD cards. One of the times they threw it in their camera or something and it was formatted wrong. And then when I lived in Iowa, one time I had my SD card taken. So they didn't take the camera, but they took all the valuable information on it. So they combat that issue with the Python lock goes through, and it goes through the actual door to open up the camera to access all the buttons and the SD card. So that's really cool. It's a peace of mind for knowing that your camera's not going to get taken or your SD card's not going to get taken. So that's what I got. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you can take these tips with you. If you decide to buy a camera, check out these stealth cams. They're pretty nice. The video quality is great. It's fun to see what's out there, and really looking forward to setting some more. So thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.